It's been a no good, very bad week for Donald Trump's fixer, Michael Cohen, and it may have just gotten a lot worse. The Washington Post reporting today that the National Enquirer shared stories about Trump with Cohen before publishing them, both during Trump's presidential campaign and after he became president. As Aaron Blake writes for the Post, quote, "To the casual observer, this may seem like a media ethics story, but it's potentially way more than that. That's because Trump's control over and Cohen's involvement in the Enquirer's business is at the center of the probe into Cohen and alleged hush money payments to Trump's accusers. The story comes after reports throughout the week that show the pressure on Cohen to flip could be at an all-time high. And as Cohen rubs elbows with Tom Arnold, a man who's vowed to bring the president down and who we'll talk to in just a couple of minutes. The panel's still here. Joyce and Phil are still with us. Joyce, talk us through the legal significance of this, of what looks like collusion between the president, his fixer, a man Rudy Giuliani described as funneling money through, and the National Enquirer.
One big piece of legal significance here would be whether this entire course of conduct constitutes some kind of an illegal campaign contribution. Candidates like Trump have to report all of the assistance that their campaign receives. And if there's an exchange of something of value here, in this case suppressing stories about the president or putting out what in essence are ads for the campaign at no cost, then that's the kind of information Trump would have to report on campaign filings. And if this is intentional and if there's a pattern of this kind of conduct, it could roll over into the criminal arena. And of course, we know Southern District of New York is already investigating Cohen for criminal campaign finance violations. So it's hard to tell right now where this is headed. It doesn't look good for either Cohen or the president.
And Phil Rucker, this is another piece of extraordinary reporting in your paper today. What I found most surprising, Joyce is talking about how they may have stumbled into, and I say stumbled because everyone always describes that campaign as so crippled by incompetence, but we don't know that was the fact. But your paper describes conduct that was ongoing, that even after Donald Trump was president, there was still this practice of sending articles and covers over for approval.
That's right, and it's pretty extraordinary. And just to make sure everyone watching understands, that is not normal. Journalists get fired for sharing their stories with sources for approval before publication. If I were to do that, I would not have a job at the Washington Post anymore. So it's highly unusual. It speaks to the way, or to the relationship rather, that Trump and Michael Cohen had with the National Enquirer, and it really, raises doubts about the reporting, but certainly raises a lot of legal questions that Joyce just got into.
And John Heilemann, let me show you some of the headlines. I know the country has justifiably been consumed by the tragedy at the border, but this is Michael Cohen's week in review. Did Michael Cohen just drop a hint about flipping on Trump? Cohen quits RNC gig, slams Trump's immigration policy. Michael Cohen wants Trump to pay his legal fees, and the publisher of the National Enquirer subpoenaed in Michael Cohen probe. His legal troubles are mounting as pressure grows, as I understand from his family and friends, on him to do some sort of deal to avoid jail time.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's never been any doubt in my mind how this is going to end up, which is, I mean, if you look at the Southern District doing what they did, this extraordinary, incredible thing, we have to go back to the beginning. Right. The raid itself on the personal attorney of the President of the United States, what the standard was to get that warrant was off the charts high. They knew he'd committed crimes before they walked in the door. They almost had to prove that to get the warrant. So they now are engaged in this broad, wide-ranging criminal investigation that is going to yield indictments and probably going to present Michael Cohen with the choice of spending the rest of his life in jail or cooperating. There's almost no one given that choice. And everyone who knows Michael Cohen says, for all of his many defects, loves his family and has been treated like crap. I use crap now twice on the show today. Has been treated like systematically been crapped all over by Donald Trump over the course of the whole relationship. I'll do it again in a moment. That guy, given the way he's been repaid for his loyalty, given the dirty business he's done for Donald Trump, now facing potentially decades in jail and wanting to how does he not end up cooperating with prosecutors? It doesn't make any sense to me that there's any other outcome.
So we're going to talk to Tom Arnold in the next block, but let me just put up this picture that Tom Arnold tweeted of him with Michael Cohen. Tom Arnold on a very public mission on behalf of Vice News to unearth some of the tapes, tapes from The Apprentice and other tapes in which Donald Trump reveals his true self. I think we get a pretty good window into that on Twitter these days, but I'm sure there's even more on the tapes from before his political career began. What do you think Michael Cohen was thinking when he posed for that picture?
I think he knew that all of this is a sort of subtle messaging back and forth.
Not that subtle.
Is it subtle?
It's not even subtle.
Are we that's not over.
You're with Tom Arnold.
He's not subtle. Yeah, I mean, at this point, the guy's like, look, I'm about to flip on you, right? And I think this is what's interesting also about some of this reporting from this week. There's only one puzzle piece left, right? He's already in trouble for the supposedly, campaign violation of paying Stormy Daniels. If there is a catch and kill story that the Enquirer had, and they're like, hey, we're going to run the story, and Michael Cohen says no, and the Enquirer then paid someone to shut up and not release that story, then he's under the jail at this point.
Don't we have that already, Joyce, in the Karen McDougal story? Wasn't that Karen McDougal's story that she's now told publicly?
Right.
It really is her story, and they make these promises to her about what she'll get, and none of it comes to fruition. That story hasn't gotten enough coverage yet, and there is obviously this pattern, but I think the point here is that if there is still more to be uncovered, if the National Enquirer was doing more catch and kill, this could really mount up in a very negative way that could have repercussions up on the Hill, right? This could, at the end of the day, provide a basis for impeachment as much as it could for indictment.
Rev.
I think that the whole question of the Enquirer goes back to what has already been said with this lady saying that this was the understanding. This was part of the core of the investigation into Michael Cohen. But it also speaks to, you can't have Michael Cohen on one side saying, oh, no, I did this for the president with Stormy Daniels, and he didn't know about it. Well, then, were you bringing the stories to the president that you killed, or that he didn't know about that either? I mean, at this point, he's put in a position, I agree with
But you
John.
have to have a theory. I mean, there's no way the president, and most people that know the president said that he was a master of the micro. There's no way he didn't know about the cover.
There's no way he didn't know who was the elevator operator in Trump Towers. I'm talking about somebody that knows him, and that everybody, any of us, pro or con, that had good or bad meetings with Trump, dealt with Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen was like his therapist. He's the guy that when you walked out angry because he wouldn't do whatever it was, he'd be like, you got to understand. He was the comforter to all of us on the long ride downstairs on why this guy was as belligerent as he is.
One of Trump's many binkies. Here's the thing. As bad as all the catch and kill is, as bad as all those stories are going to be, they're going to be a small percentage of all the really, really bad stuff that Michael Cohen did on Donald Trump's behalf over the course of 10 or 11 years. I'm telling you, it makes it much worse than what we know about the campaign finance violations potentially. But when the totality of what he's done in all these foreign countries, making all these dirty deals, all the money that passed through hands, this is going to be just like a little.
This is going to be like
it's going to be like a sliver of icing on top of a big, giant, nasty cake.
Ooh, a nasty cake. All right.
Maybe even a cake made of.
No, oh God. All right. I'm sorry for him, everybody. When we come back.